We're so few, just open the mic and speak. Not many people. Yes, Marlene.
Okay, you were talking about few would be saved, and you went through that. Then how do you see the rest of the people?
Uh, that's in the context of first resurrection, first fruits.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Could you repeat what you just said, Tagore? In the context of what?
Can you raise up your voice, Ken? Not able to hear you. Maybe you can come close to the mic.
Let me check it here. I think of.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, well, yeah. Could you repeat what you just said? You said in the context of something. I missed what you said.
Oh, Marlene's question was, are few saved? So Jesus' reply was, yes, few would be saved because only few would pass through narrow gate and difficult way. So that's for first resurrection, I think. Only few would make it into first resurrection. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Anything that is not clear? Yes.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yes, please.
You started off by saying that there are 3 milestones of righteousness. Could you use a different word than milestones? Is
It's
it like different aspects of righteousness?
different aspects, but for us, we are going one after other. We are growing in our Christian journey. That in that context, I said milestones. So we were not given the whole of new covenant righteousness in one go. We understand one aspect of after other. So in that sense, we have so far come to 3 milestones, but you can very well say 3 aspects of righteousness. You're right.
So they're not necessarily simultaneously, or I should say, they are not necessarily sequentially achieved, but rather they are each in their own progression of completeness, so to speak.
That's very right. I 100% agree with you. They're concurrently accomplished. They're simultaneously, we would be growing on the 3 aspects, but the learning path sometimes on the day one, we may not know all the 3. So in that context, you might first learn about moral righteousness. That's what most people would begin their journey. And then relational aspect you would learn. Then you will learn positional aspects. So the learning sequence, you might learn in a particular step 1, step 2, step 3. It's possible. But once you know all 3, you would be growing in all 3 simultaneously. You're right. It's not growing is
So then
yeah, go ahead.
So then you would say that your moral righteousness is your understanding of the law.
Yes.
Okay.
What we commonly call law, we mean, or most people mean, moral righteousness. Do not murder, do not deceive, do not tell lies. These basic morals parents would teach.
I really like that aspect of the positional righteousness. which explains how you can be where God is. That's an awesome concept, because that's why God can say, or Christ can say, I never knew you, because you weren't around him. And it also shows why you don't want to be in the wrong organization. You don't want to be in the wrong, as you said, Zoom room.
Yeah, that's very right. I used two examples which are very possible for us. The concept is much broader and wider. It could be family also. Sometimes you may have to leave your own children or your own parents, your own cousins, if they're affecting you as Babylon. So
Well, Jesus did that. He said, well, who's my family?
yeah. Yeah, it cuts across all our relationships. Sometimes a close friend, you have to leave. Sometimes, like, you have some families, some friends in churches for 3 decades, 4 decades, very good friends. Now it's very difficult to cut that relationship. It's painful. It's not easy. It's not easy for anybody. That's where the positional righteousness, you're right on the track, Tom. I'm glad that you're bringing up related verses and concepts.
I don't know where this, can you hear me okay?
Yes, now very clear.
Okay, I'm speaking up. Where this fits in, but it just, maybe somebody mentioned it and I didn't realize it, but the passage came to my mind, whether somebody said something or not. That where I am, there you may be also. Isn't that more of a positional type thing? It's not so much we're going to be with Jesus in heaven, but we're going to be with him in thought and motivation, where that's where he wants us. He wants us to be on the same wavelength as he's on.
That is correct. When you say we should be in the same wavelength, I think what you are saying is we should be thinking the same way he thinks, right?
Yes,
And we should be evaluating things the same way he evaluates, isn't it? So,
Chris wants,
yeah, if he evaluates a Zoom room, that this has become Babylon, I'm not staying here, I'm leaving. If he evaluates about a particular Zoom room, what would you do? In order
right
to,
now, the only Zoom room we know is this one.
I know, just an example.
Chris has something she wants to say or ask. I'm not sure.
This week I was listening to YouTube and they were talking about the Muslims are waiting for Jesus to come back. Okay. And later I heard this time he's going to come back not proclaiming that he's God's son. So as you say, the woman sits on the multitudes and the peoples and the tongues and that's true. That's just kind of it just came this week. Then you started talking about that and it's proof. That's all.
You're right, that woman is a mystery woman.
Right.
Once we finish chapter 51, I'm planning to start Revelation 17 and 18. Dive into the mystery woman, Babylon, and that is incredible amount of data that God is giving. There are 95 characteristics or 95 features of this woman. So I'm planning to take time and explain every feature by feature.
Isn't a dozen enough?
95. People counted 95.
Yeah,
Wow.
wow.
You don't think that there are 95 features in just 2 chapters.
Yeah, boy.
I can believe it. But
So once we are done with 95, all the characteristics of 17 and 18, some things become very clear for you.
Still open.
It's so clear. At least I can break the suspense and go ahead and tell. Uh, it cannot be Catholic Church. So it has to be something else. So it is not New York, I believe. So lots of candidates get eliminated once you go through all the 95 characteristics. And they slowly, it's like a dot. You're putting dots on a white paper. Finally, all the dots, once we finish, you see the picture. It makes sense. You see the picture, the connections in a dotted picture kind of thing. It's not a color photograph of a woman, but you see dots, so many dots. That picture emerges and it is clear and sure. And once you have good comprehension of 95 characteristics, then we can go to other verses of Jesus Christ. In Gospels, he talks a lot about Babylon. Most people do not have clue that he's talking about Babylon. So that makes real sense once we come to Jesus' teachings. And we go to some scary places, scary conclusions, which most people don't want to make conclusions, but probably God would force us to make those conclusions because the data and evidence is so big and so plain and so compelling. So probably you would probably swallow it with a pinch of grain of salt or grain of whatever. That's what at least I have done. I was forced to change my opinions on many, many things after this.
Well, now we have to hang in there. Get through Revelation 17, 18.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. It took
That's
several
great.
months, just 17 and 18, for me to study each feature. It's very, very hard work. Like they're scattered all across scriptures. The woman trades in different items like silk, ivory, fine linen. So you have to go comb the scriptures and come up with what are these items, where are they used. That tells you, that helps you to understand what is this woman after, why God is describing this woman like this. There are 2 chapters. 17 is the description of the Babylon. 18 is the post-mortem. At the end of 17, it is destroyed. And 18 is, it looks back what it was, how that whore, how it lifted itself up. So the post-mortem, he gives more details than the first description, 17. But we do need both the chapters. And then chapter 16, also he talks about Babylon. And chapter 14 and other places also he talks about Babylon, Euphrates being dried up. So we will come back to those chapters in Revelation later on and try to connect them, harmonize them, and one good consolidated understanding of this subject. So that would help you to begin thinking about Babylon, but over the years you will learn a lot more on your own. But I want to make a beginning for people coming to these studies, so that you have a beginning of good foundational understanding of Babylon.
Sounds good.
Well, Babylon's not our friend, that's for certain.
Good conclusion.
It's Babylon has so much to offer that it's awful tantalizing. You know, that's why you have advertising on TV and radio and newspapers, magazines, and everything else. Just got all this neat stuff to distract us. Like you said, automobiles, luxury items, convenience items, the whole 9 yards. It's the allure of the world, the flesh, and the devil. And it makes me think, you know, man, why do I don't want to go there. There's a passage of scripture that says even disregarding the clothing or something like that that's tainted by it. I can't remember the exact, you probably know passage, but you know what I'm talking about, huh? You know what I'm talking about, Tagore? The it says I can't remember just exactly how it says, but I'm sure it's in the New Testament. Talks about the garment that's contaminated.
Defiled.
With the different allures that are out there.
Joshua
Mm.
7:21.
Pardon?
Joshua 7:21.
What does it say?
Take a second.
Let's go there.
When I saw among the spoils a goodly Babylonish garment, one of the Targum adds, for no more was taken a garment made of Babylon, wool, or jarshi, or a valuable garment made in Babylon called Shinar. For that's the word of the text. So, and it goes on to talk about the spoils of the Babylonish garment.
So that would be the Old Testament counterpart, what I'm talking about then. Something about the New Testament. It says abhorring, something along the lines of abhorring the very garment that's tainted by the flesh.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember. Do you where is that found? Is it one of the epistles?
Yeah, that's
Is it in Peter? I noticed that was up there. I don't know.
Well, Hebrews 14:1 talks about the Shinar, the king of Shinar.
Yeah, there it is. It's a garment, but yeah, it's in the New Testament. It's a garment.
I don't know,
Okay.
garment or some other word.
Keep
you
going. Yeah.
Hating even the garment stained by flesh.
Where is that, hon?
Jude 1:23.
Jude
Jude.
1:23, yeah.
Just Jude 23.
Snatching them out of the
Others,
fire.
Yeah,
Jude is not long-winded.
yeah.
Save
Hating
others by
even the
snatching
garment
lives.
spotted by flesh.
Yeah. Yeah,
He says,
that came to my mind.
Save
I
others
think,
by snatching them out of the fire.
right. Let's see. Was that before that? What verse is that, hon?
I don't know. I think this is part of the same verse, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Pull them out of fire. That's the context.
Yeah. Pulling them out of the fire.
Mm.
That's how emergent all of this is. I mean, that's the way we need to look at our lives and look at those around us that we love and cherish, and yet we see them going different directions, and we hope that we will stay faithful and true. It's a warfare. There's no question about it.
Then 24 says, now unto him that is able to keep you from falling and to present you faultless.
So we go from having garments tainted by the flesh to being faultless as we yield our members to instruments of righteousness.
Yep.
It's interesting. Revelation 3:4 also brings out about the Sardis. Thou hast a few names, even in Sardis, which have not defiled their garments, and
There
have
you-
walked. They shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy.
3 verse 4.
There's a lot more about garments than I thought there was. In
Yeah,
our garments, that would be a good study in itself. Our just following through on garments. Wow. And then we got white raiment you talk about here. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
so we're told to come out of Babylon. What do we go into? How do you see the picture of what we go into? The glory of God?
Babylon into New Jerusalem, isn't it? The city of God. That's something that we can,
But that's in the
and
future.
it's progressive. I think it's now too.
What do we do right now? What do we now?
Pardon?
What do we do right now? How do you describe what we do right now to be out of that?
Draw near to God and he will draw near to us. I think that's it.
Heavenly Jerusalem, Tom, has some aspects that are now, some aspects that will be future. Right now, it's an abstract concept that kind of relates to what we are doing. It's a very allegorical, figurative language it is now. But when it descends from heaven, that at that point it has become a reality. But here it's kind of future reality. It's a done deal with God. So he calls us Jerusalem. He calls us New Jerusalem. So
I'm just saying it's much easier for us to understand a picture in our mind if we can describe clearly what not Babylon is. And we can picture that. And then we can reside with our mind, at least in that, in our actions, in our thoughts, our words, how we relate to other people when they insult us, and
yeah, that's Zion. That's New Jerusalem. So if we are not spiritual Babylon, we have to be spiritual Jerusalem and Zion. So there's no middle ground.
right.
So That's why God is parallelly discussing both Zion as well as Babylon in Jeremiah 51. But in Revelation 17 and 18, few chapters are exclusively for Babylon. And last two chapters are exclusively for spiritual Jerusalem and Zion. Because Revelation is too detailed.
Well, Tom, you're talking about trying to understand the reality of it. We have to see all these things as timeless truths. They reach what we are doing now reaches into the future, and it has impact on us and others around us. And my concern is not just for myself, but it's for my children, relatives, people that are very close to us and dear in our heart, and we don't see them making right choices. And we have a hard enough time making our own right choices. So it's I don't know. It's just it's things that these are things that I deal with in my mind daily. And it's a real challenge. I want to walk close to him, and I want to hang on to him. He's Abba, and he's all we need. Without Jesus Christ, there is nothing.
In my private study, I'm going through different prophecies, Joel, Ezekiel. They talk about what would happen to the people who stay with Babylon, who refuse to hear, or who delay their decision making. So delaying decision making itself is huge judgments would be unleashed against them. And who do not decide to come out, decide to stay there, they have even greater judgments that are pronounced. So the positional righteousness is very, very time sensitive. So when God makes you aware and gives that sensitivity, immediately you should come out. That immediately come out sometimes is explained in terms of fleeing. You flee, run for your life. That's kind of urgency God is telling. So delaying is never helpful. Actually, it incurs greater punishments, delaying. And on other hand, I see Lot's wife. When you are fleeing, flee.
That's what I was
When you are fleeing Sodom, you have to flee. You should not turn back and look back.
Look back.
So Lot's wife is another big teaching that comes out of this.
Example.
We also need to keep in mind, fleeing youthful lust isn't just for youth; it's for all of us.
Even 90-year-old man, I think, has some.
Now you're getting awful close. You're getting personal.
These are not going to go away. But that's again moral righteousness. We should make good progress in moral righteousness.
Yes.
But relational righteousness is very essential. And positional righteousness is also very essential. And we would be learning few more aspects of righteousness.
I like that. It's a personal righteousness. What else?
Positional,
Positional and relational.
relational and moral.
Personal, positional, relational, moral. But fleeing youthful lust is not just for the youth. It's
That's moral. That's-
immature.
yeah,
Immature.
yeah.
Of course, what kind of lust is not immature?
That's a moral domain, moral area. We should be making progress, but I don't believe that you would be 100% perfect in moral aspects, uh, because you're pulse of flesh.
Mhm.
But the other two areas are accomplishable 100%. Like a good relationship, you can still grow, and good positional decisions, time sensitive, timely decisions of positioning yourself on a continual basis and continual evaluation where you are standing. Are you standing with Christ? So that kind of constant monitoring evaluation is doable.
Is it what?
Doable. Is it
Oh,
doable?
yeah, you say is doable.
Actually, this positional righteousness I wanted to bring in Friday evening. That's core doctrine, but I have to discuss it today in prophecy also.
Nothing wrong with that.
So you're talking about you're going to be covering that on Friday?
Sometime in Friday, I will bring that.
Okay.
But
Sometime.
otherwise, it doesn't make sense to study Babylon in this detail,
Mhm.
because Babylon helps us to position ourselves where Christ is.
So Ken, you mentioned something about what you give to your children. Proverbs 13:22 says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. And I thought that was something that was interesting that I shared with my daughters. But what I didn't share, and I should have, is that it's not just an inheritance of wealth, because some of your wealth is how you teach them the truth of God.
That's the
Yeah.
main wealth.
Yeah, and that is something that we passed on to them, hopefully to our daughters, but we have 3 of them, but I'm not sure that we just don't have contact with our grandchildren as much as we should. And it would be nice to be able to pass that on to our children's children directly without being
Things have
added
really,
by our
yeah,
children. teaching them.
things have really changed in these days and
Mhm.
times. It's
Yeah,
different.
I grew up with my grandfather and grandmother in the same house that we lived in,
That's to be cherished.
and I appreciate the talks I had with my grandfather even as I was younger, because he died when I wasn't very old.
Which verse, Tom?
Oh, I was Proverbs 13:22. Sorry. Talks about a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So he thinks about his family and tries to provide for them.
Wow.
And of course, the Proverbs 22:6 says, "Have a child in the way that he should go, and even when he's old, he's not going to depart from it." We have to be careful about how we distribute our wealth to our young'un, because an inheritance gained hastily in the beginning will not be blessed in the end. That's Proverbs 20:21. I've been giving this some thought, as you might imagine.
What's the
20
other verse? Proverbs?
Proverbs 20:21. That was inheritance gained hastily. If that's what you're looking for, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because we know what happened to the younger in Luke 15:12, where the younger son said, give me my share of the property now. I'm going to go party.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's loosely translated.
You mean it was far worse.
Yeah.
Mm.
Perhaps they don't value that property if you get it easily, quickly.
Yeah.
Just wondered.
What was that again?
They don't value that inheritance
Yeah.
if they get it quickly.
There should be conditions.
Conditions and a long wait.
Yeah. A little at a time. You did good on the first part. Here's some more.
Good reason for the Lord let you live longer. Mm.
And you also see with the inheritance, the value of the relationship that goes with it. It's not just
go.
stuff, it's not like winning the lottery or something. Just getting stuff without any relationship connected with it. It's kind of like, okay, it's stuff. And you can see what's brought out tonight about God wants that relationship with us. And we are his inheritance and we inherit him. And the relationship is what is valuable.
And that's in 1 Peter 1:4.
Where is that?
1 Peter 1:4. To an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you.
That's true. We are talking about a different kind of inheritance.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So this is painting the picture of what's in the future.
The word of God is our inheritance. And if the older generation does not teach the younger, then it's lost. And that's already uh, what the inheritance is the lifestyle, the word. If the young children see the grandparents or the parents studying the Bible and they are included in it, especially if it were like in the dinner table or you know um any conversation that would talk about the Lord. So that's being lost now by most because of the cell phone. Before there was the television and everyone was glued to that set. And now it's at least then you had to huddle together and you can watch something together. Now it's separating us because the cell phone is individual. So that's the sad and the reality of, I think, Babylon.
Yeah, Tom and I were just talking about that this morning, about how just the television came on, how that took away from family time to sit and talk with one another. You're sitting there, everybody's watching a show. And as with any technology, it can be abused and, or it can be used for good. Look at the technology we have now with the Zoom to be able to communicate and talk with one another. And yet you take the other extreme and, everything is looking at their iPhone or their, texting and, the communication is not there because you have all this technology. So it's how you use it, I guess.
I go through some of the commentaries people wrote in 1800s before the advent of TV and cell phones. They don't have any entertainment. They might go to a stage, a play, to watch once in 6 months or so when that troupe comes to their village. But they have nothing else to do than to study scriptures. And the way they write commentaries, like if they write, they take a particular verse and try to explain. And when they explain, this paragraph has 2 lines in Greek and then English, and then again another line in Hebrew. And then again they shift to English and explain, and the last line is Latin. In order to just go through this commentary, I need to be proficient in all 3 languages. I wonder how they could accomplish Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. What I do is, this is like a crude, like I open Google Translate. Google Translate has a feature, like it identifies the language and then translates. So I'll just copy this entire line and put it there. It writes in English for me instantaneously. So I'm tricking the system, but they didn't have Google Translate. They were writing like they're hard. They don't have even internet computer tools to learn the language. So they didn't have any distractions. They were full focusing on scriptures and then all the languages and brute memory. And yet they did incredible job of analyzing the verses, thinking about them, meditating on them for several years. That's why they could get back with some gems, a gem of insight into that scriptures. So going forward, like for Friday night studies, epistles of John, you might have noticed, I'm putting those gems that they came up to explain a verse, what they thought after studying that verse for several decades. So they're invaluable. So I just don't want to explain that in my own words, just rather I copy and paste it so that you get that full benefit of their study.
I found similar things in our forefathers of this nation who really knew words and understood them in depth. They, as I read the constitutional papers, the things that the writings of of our forefathers who described why they thought something should be said or why it should not be said in the Constitution. I'd read a while, and I found myself probably every couple of sentences having to pull out the dictionary and figure out what it was, the word was they were using.
Yeah, the English has changed.
It had, but they're still there. Those words are still there. And they describe exactly what it is that they're thinking. It's a word that I didn't know existed, and it gave such a fullness to what it was and why they came up with what they did. I mean, I've got a bachelor's degree in engineering and a master's in business, and I've never heard some of those words, but they describe exactly to the T what should be what they were thinking, which I found amazing.
They're probably more learned than us. The whole education system is coming down qualitatively. The richness of
David.
language. Yeah, go ahead.
David Barton has got some interesting stories too. I think if it's Weatherspoon, our forefathers anyway, when he was 4 years old, had read the whole Bible through.
4 years old.
When he's 4. So I teased Heidi back when I first learned this, it's like, well, you got to raise the standards for the grandkids, you know? It's like, yeah, you talk about they had time to do that and, you know, they have the textbook even to have that in their lap, let alone read it. Yeah, they were really educated and able to memorize.
That's a good way of improving your English and your thinking skills by studying scriptures. Just going through Bible.
Igor, you said, when did you first encounter Christianity? How old were you?
It was quite late. Probably 20.
That's awesome. I mean,
I consider late. My wife started when she was 7 or 8.
wow.
She completed it when she was 8. She completed Revelation, and she completed Genesis on her own. Like she thought, like if she is not doing in one sitting, she's not going to understand. So she will go through entire Genesis in one sitting, and then
Wow.
entire Revelation in one sitting, and still she has no clue. So I was waiting for
I
answers.
can hear her laughing in the background.
And as Tom was telling, like forefathers, grandfathers, they were so much into Bible. She has her grandfather and great uncle. Both of them would always be talking about Bible. And she was like 3 years old. Uh, Her mom would put her in a good dress and a good frock, and she has 2 hands holding each of the gentlemen, and she would be walking with them on a long walk, and they will be talking about Bible non-stop, this aspect and this aspect, and only thing she remembers is Paul.
Remember what?
Paul. They often
Paul.
refer to Apostle Paul.
Oh, Paul.
That much she remembers. And when she grew up little bit, another great uncle came, and sometimes people will hold the little child and throw her up into the air and then catch them. So he was that great uncle is throwing her up into this and catching, and she was asking questions, and he was answering about Bible.
The only
And
thing I think I can remember of my grandparents is my grandmother made bootleg in the bathtub during Prohibition. I never had that heritage of either side of the family
I
having any religious convictions or Bible instruction, nothing like that. I came to Christ as a teenager,
see.
and that was a miracle in itself. But now I need to catch up. I'm studying for the final exam.
Yeah, better late than never.
Yeah. Well, actually, I went to out of high school. I spent a semester and a half at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, but I didn't go very far. I was a counselor at a Christian camp. So, and I met my wife. I was 22, and she was raised in a Mennonite church, and her parents were Mennonite converts at that time. They neither one of them had any kind of a really religious upbringing, did they?
I know.
So they, both of our parents didn't have a background. In her mom and dad's case, they started attending church and were involved. But so it's a real challenge for us who weren't raised, didn't have those advantages. But even so, the Bible says they're without excuse because there's still God still speaks to us even if our parents don't have anything to say to us through nature, through through the Bible, through whatever. He hasn't left himself without a witness.
Sure.
Even if our parents and grandparents were not a witness at all. So this is not a final exam. This has just been a slow trot as we've grown older, but we're thankful for what God has shown us and is showing us today. This is so important. And I appreciate people like
Bill?
Phil.
Friend.
He's been an encouragement, and we're glad to have. We met them up in Port Austin back in 2000. That's been 24 years ago. We haven't touched base very much, but we have continued to touch base every few years or so.
More lately.
Yeah, more lately, of course.
Well, I don't mean Bible study. I mean,
Yeah,
before we started Bible study.
they're good people.
Phil visited me a few months ago. He
Phil did?
came to Ocala, Florida.
Oh, wow.
So we were sitting across table, and then I asked, "Hey Phil, how much do you agree with my teachings?" He said 99.9. How about 0.1%? Let it be there. That would always be there, he said.
You said how about 1%, or he did?
1.9.
I asked him 0.1%, how about that?
Oh yeah, 0.1%. He was off that much. Only 0.1%. 99.9. Okay, I got it.
I thought that was pretty impressive for him to say that.
Yeah. I tell you, he's very special. He's very careful about how he's very thoughtful about how he communicates. He's good communicator.
So coming back to Rupa, her great uncle was throwing her up and catching her when she was 5 years old. At that point, she asked some question about Bible, and her great uncle told her something she remembers for rest of her life. Her great uncle told her, Bible is like a well, a deep well. More you study, more you get out of it, more you learn. As from a well, as you draw water, you get still more water left in the well. So he said that while he was still catching her when she was 5 years old. Certain sayings would stick with you rest of your life. So when Tom was telling about his grandparents, they make great impressions. Their example, their teaching, and godly parents and godly grandparents are tremendous blessing. You cannot discount that.
We are all ears. My wife and I are.